We are live. Welcome back, everybody. I am Ty Cobb Bagger, the host of Behind the Tool Belt, and today's episode is 265. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday edition. Today we have another special guest. Stay tuned, and we will be back after our short intro from our sponsors.
TC Backer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. TC Backer.
Welcome to Behind the Tool Belt, where the stories are bold, the conversations are real, and the insights come to you live, raw, and uncut. Every week, host Ty Cobb Bagger sits down with game changers, trailblazers, and industry leaders who aren't afraid to tell it like it is. No filters, no scripts, just the truth. Please welcome your host of Behind the Tool Belt, Ty Cobb Bagger.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Behind the Tool Belt, episode 265. I can't believe we're coming up on our 5-year mark this week on the 23rd. Is that today or tomorrow? Tomorrow? Yeah, amazing. And today we have another amazing special guest, Miss April Hall, a trailblazer in our industry, a mother, a wife, a #1 Amazon best-selling author, host, operates, and is the president of the longest running, I would say, most consistent conference to date, SRC Summit. And the list goes on. It truly does. There's so much more about her that I would like to know. Myself personally, and hopefully we can drag some of that out of her today. But let's welcome her to the Behind the Tool Belt stage, Ms. April Hall.
Hi, Ty. Thank you so much for having me. Always an honor to be on the show with you. I appreciate being back. I love what you do. It's great for the industry, and excited to be here today.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. There's a lot going on, a lot of good stuff, preparation that we are partaking in ourselves with the Behind the Tool Belt podcast that you so graciously invited us to attend this year. So we are actually loading up as we speak. We use a company called Units. They dropped the pod off. We're loading everything up. But before we do that, Vic and his team set up our booth space to just make sure all the monitors, the lights and the bling and the glitz and the glam is all sparkly and shined up so we can represent you and our companies, as fairly and as cool as we can possibly make it. So this week is a good week because they're picking up our pod on Friday. That way it can be in Irving, Texas, in enough time for us to meet them and get things start to set up and all that good stuff. So thank you for inviting us and having us to your magnificent event.
Well, thank you for being there. It's always great to have you guys there. Your booth is always popping. People are like, can I get on the podcast? Can I share? And so it's constantly busy the whole time, and you guys do an excellent job of that. So it's always fun to have you there.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's definitely a passion that we all have. It's not just my passion. It has become, our team's dream as well to represent the Behind the Tool Belt brand. And of course, our construction business is, TC Backer Construction is where it all, came from with us just, implementing and promoting our charitable events. And now it's became this industry staple. I think, maybe I shouldn't self-proclaim that myself, but
it is.
Yeah. So thank you for everything you do. Thank you for coming on, because you are what, along with many other people, are what make this, podcast so special, because it is live. This isn't scripted. We don't have any bullet points. We didn't exchange notes or anything like that. So, this is as real as it gets, as authentic as it gets. And I think that's why a lot of people love it. Every single show that we do every single week and or at the shows are all live. We do not pre-record anything. Not that you can't catch it on the replay, yes. But if I say something stupid, you say something stupid, it's
just out there, right?
So kudos to you for having the kahunas to want to come on here and take the risk of, looking, sounding, but really it's what I've come to, identify is that this really isn't about me. It's more so about you and our listeners and viewers. And I think they really dig it because we do make mistakes and they know it.
Right? That it happens.
Exactly. And I'm sure I say too many ands, stutter over my words, but I get excited sometimes and I get off track and go down many rabbit holes throughout the conversation and stuff. But thank you again for coming onto the show. And we want to talk about SRC, obviously the summit that we're also jacked up over right now. I guess what is one thing attendees would walk away from, this year? Anything new, anything exciting? Like what is the theme this year for SRC?
Well, I can't break it down just to one thing because there's so many. I really like to talk with the contractors, the attendees, during and after the event. And so I like to always deliver on what the contractors want to gain more knowledge on. Really big about saying staying in of what's happening in the industry, right? Those hot button topics, any type of laws that happen. I like to switch it up quite a bit. So this year, I think for the most part, we get a lot of business owners and a lot of us kind of have ADD and don't like to sit for too long. So I've shortened the show, but I've made it way more efficient and brought in the top, hot button topics to address those so people can take back information and start using it right away. So what I'm doing this year is February 4th, we're going to kick off the vendor trade show. That opens at 11 a.m. It goes to 6 p.m. We'll have a welcome mixer in there between 4 to 6. It's on the vendor floor. It's for vendors and everybody just start meeting each other right away. Because the top two things that people really get out of SRC every year when I hear back is one, the education, and two, the networking. So I like to create atmospheres for people to do just that. So in the first day, it's really, hey, let's meet everybody. Let's get to know one another. We have 2 specialized breakout sessions happening that day behind the vendor floor. The main stage is set for the 5th. That's one full day of main stage. Vendors are still going to be there. I've gotten a lot of people to ask certain questions over the year wanting to gain more knowledge, right? So this year I've opened up an appraisal panel. Contractors ask a lot like, hey, I need to know the appraisal process. How does it work? What are the ins? What are the outs? We're going to be discussing that. So just to give contractors, if they're already doing it, hey, this is what it is. Do you have to do it every time? No, but you should be aware of how the process works, right? The public adjuster panel, that's something that I've never done before, but doing a lot of fire and smoke claims, we utilize public adjusters on every single claim. And so I think it's very important for contractors to utilize those and, maybe not every claim, right? But in certain situations, they keep the pay flowing, they keep you getting paid, they keep things on track. So we're very happy with our public adjuster relationships that we have in the industry. So I like to bring everybody together as well. We're going to be talking about AI. That's going to be cool. There's Delta Claims. They're going to be doing a keynote on AI, and they have a pretty slick AI system on how to get these claims moving. I can't explain it. I'm going to let them explain it on the main stage, but so it's something you don't want to miss. Also, that evening, we're going to be doing a fun SRC party. And so it's another opportunity to do some networking. On the 6th, I always get a lot of people asking for specialized breakout sessions. Mm-hmm. We have, I think there's 20 speakers on that day throughout. We do about 3 at a time, depending on what it is. A couple of the sessions I have it only 1 is happening at a time. So there's different things we're going to be learning about there. I did invite Steve Badger to come to this session. And I thought it would be really important to have him there because there's a lot of contractors who want to ask him questions and they don't necessarily have the opportunity to do that. So I'd like to bring him in to kind of establish, hey, get some questions answered and find some common ground. But I also did ask him to talk on the right to repair. This is something that's become way more prevalent in the last year, but however, I've been talking about it for the last 3 years. And it's something where contractors really need to be in the know of what's happening, because with the right to repair, the insurance company can pick your contractor. So we need to know, how does that affect the current roofing industry? It's huge. And so I asked him to share on that. And then I asked him to open it up for, an exclusive Q&A session, because I know a lot of contractors have questions for him. They're going to get answered. I guess my most favorite one that I can tell you as a takeaway, I've been doing a lot of smoke claims and fire claims for the past few years, done very well in DFW. We're now in California. We're going to be talking about that, especially like with the California fires that just currently happened. It's a big issue. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring on a special guest real quick. Mm-hmm. Is that okay? I want to introduce everybody to my hubby, David Carlson. Most people know him as the co-founder of Eagle View. Hey, Dave. Watch that. Let's see if you're getting frightened in here.
Yeah.
He's
There
sporting
he
that
is.
FRC shirt. Woohoo!
Love it.
So we've been working on a lot of fire claims, and there's just so much information that hasn't been out there on part of the education of how toxic some of the things are within that happen. So take it away, babe.
So fires. Started making that pivot about 3 or 4 years ago. I've been speaking about it at the SRC for quite some time. I believe I took a blowtorch to your hand at one point on stage. I think it was last year.
Yeah. Right.
You know, to not only understand it, but how to stop it, how to repel it, you know, how to prevent this stuff, but also how to clean clean it, right? It's a lot of contaminants. You have something called TCDD. It's really toxic. It's worse than nuclear waste, and it comes from burning plastics over 1,600 degrees. You know, I worked a lot in the fires in Colorado, really try to understand what was going on with those. And, you know, we're paving a new industry per se, something that really hasn't been done. People think, oh, there's wildfires, houses burn. You go to the houses that burn. Our primary focus has been the houses that did not get burned, but they get affected with the carcinogens from the ash and smoke inside the structures. You know, that's what causes cancer. People die, right? You got your little baby at home, has a pacifier, drops it on the floor in the crack, and you think you might clean your whole house up, but you can't it's not cleaned up just by your normal cleaning. Mm-hmm. So what happens, the kid puts it in his mouth, and there you go, right? A couple of years later, kids get sick, gets cancer, bad news. So starting off and pioneering and kind of, you know, laying out all the bumps and bruises we took along the way. A lot of things we did really well, a lot of things we did really wrong. But we learned that it was more of an educational process for the homeowners, for the policyholders. They didn't understand, number one, their insurance covered it. Number two, how it affected them, how bad it was for them. And so we had to regroup. We understood it wasn't like chasing a hurricane. It wasn't like chasing hail or tornadoes, right? This was something completely different. So it took us a while to really get it down. We recently went to California with LA fires. I have 75 people on the ground. We've signed, we're coming up on $100 million in less than a week in sales. All our claims are a large loss, every single one. None of them are under
smoke claims.
All smoke claims.
No structure whatsoever.
Right. I call them clean seal paints. You know, you take out the insulation in the attics, encapsulate it. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on there. So we have a really good team out there right now. Integrity Restoration Management Plus, that's our business here in DFW. That's all we do is fires. We don't do anything else. We've worked with several contractors in DFW that had houses that may be caught on fire, or they're working on the roofs, or tornadoes, and they wanted the roof. Still is one of them from Red Bottom Roofing. Yeah. There's tornadoes at Salina. She says, calls us up, and she goes, I know you guys do everything else. I want to do the roof. Can you help me? Because I'm going to lose the contract. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to work with them. And we said, keep the roof. Not only am I going to give you this roof, let you have this one. I got 2 more down the street. I'm going to let you do those, and I'm going to take care of everything else. Mm-hmm. And that's really, what we're going to talk about of working together at the SRC, really understanding smoke and how to go about doing it. Smoke is it's an interesting character. Mm-hmm. It gets into everything. I mean, everything. So prime example, I was just in it was a church/school type deal, preschool. This is in LA. It was last week. And I went in there and I saw it. I visually looked for it everywhere. And then after we do that, I show the policyholder. We send our hygienist in. Our hygienist, third party independent. What we do is we send them in. They swab everything. They send their samples to a lab, probably Eurolab or something to that effect. And they comes back and they get the results. From there, the hygienist writes their protocol. So our key tagline that we use is we don't guess, we test. Right? Because we're not going to guess, are we right or wrong? This is what makes us different from all the Servpros, the Cottons, the Belfours, the Molly Maids, the independent adjusters that come out and tell us, oh, there's nothing wrong, just wipe it down. We're not guessing, we're testing. We have different
levels that we see on these reports too to see how.
So what happens, we get the protocol, the hygienist writes it, we follow the protocol to the T. Then the hygienist comes back and he tests again. If we mess something up, we're cleaning over again. If we get everything right, like we do, then we get a clearance letter. Then we're able to hand that to the customer, to the school, to whoever, the hotel, the hospital, the preschool, and say, listen, your liabilities now, your exposure has now been taken care of because you mitigated the issue, and you have a third party license clearance that you received.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're realizing. People don't do that. If they half-ass it. I'm not allowed to say ass.
Yeah.
Ash, smoke. That's what I meant.
Yeah. I was going to bring that up. I was going to bring that part up. But so when you say, let's just say I'm a contractor and the neighbor's house was on fire and smoke went over, got sucked up through the soffits, into the attic space. And I called you guys. So what do you mean by like you come out and you would help us? Like give us a little more detail on that.
Yeah.
Some of the smoke maps too.
Yeah. So
Dave has patent pending smoke maps, kind of like everybody knows what a hill map is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can see the areas where the hill fell. His pretty intricate, but it shows you where the smoke goes and what structures are affected. So even if a fire like a wildfire, we go back to the Marshall fire, we had a claim that was 15 miles out, but that wind was 115 miles per hour. Well, it blew so hard we could see the structure. That got bought. We had another one in Texas. It was 8 miles out. So most people are running right to the structure. We're not. Obviously, the ones more closely are affected, but tell them a little bit about smoke maps and then how you would help like a cousin, like a neighbor.
Is this a tool that you guys own or is this accessible to everyone?
It's a Dave thing. So. He created it.
So originally I created Ash Shouldn't Smoke, right? My whole idea was to go and train people. And I created a whole training platform, how to look for it, how to find it, how to see it.
Which we currently have online.
And
I have reps in there right now.
And so to train everybody how to go about it, because I was understanding the industry all the way from the reinsurance side, working with the reinsurance when I was doing Eagle View and MetLoop, the weather company had, and understanding how the treaty works. Once a year, there's something called a treaty that the reinsurance folks give down to the carriers. And when that treaty, it basically tells them they have to follow these parameters, period. Otherwise, not going to reinsure them. And if they don't reinsure them, they can't write a new policy. Mm-hmm. And a lot of things that they look for every year is how to limit risk, right? And fraud. And they've been going through all this. And one thing that kept popping up for the last 4 or 5 years was the right to repair. And we've been seeing it. And I've heard when I first started talking about 3-4 years ago, everyone says that's never going to pass the legislation. It's never going to get through the courts. It's never going to happen.
Well, it's
Dave,
there. It's just that
nuts.
they enforce it or not.
Right.
It's
Well, guess
there.
what? It's in the policies and it's happening. It's in Florida. It's now starting in Texas. You have all these private equity companies buying these roofing companies up, putting them together, and they're creating the MRPs that the carriers are going to start using. Oh, wow. So the way all these door knockers, all these people that the sales force, they think they're roofers, but they're not. They're sales companies. Think they're going to go door to door to door. Okay, send your 10 guys to the hailstorm, sign up 20 deals, and the carrier is going to say, oh, we have the right to repair every single one of those. Now what are you going to do? And if you're not part of that network, you're out. Mm-hmm. Wow. So this was the whole idea of where Ash Shouldn't Smoke came from. It was to create a pivot, to do something, to create another avenue, not just for us, but for everybody. And it hasn't been done. Prime example, the Marshall fire in Colorado. There was nobody else going door to door except for us. Mm-hmm. You'd think after a major event like that, think about every hurricane, tornado, hailstorm, everybody's knocking doors, everyone's calling. There's nobody out there because no one understands it. So I started thinking, I was like, there's got to be a way for us to understand the area that actually gets affected. So doing what I do, I jumped off my fancy little computer and I locked myself up in a room for about a month. And I figured out how to track the Ash Shouldn't Smoke. And I use, multiple layers of mapping, and it's a whole technique. And we have that exclusively. It's patent pending on that. And eventually we were going to roll it out to everybody else. I decided not to for now. We're using it internally. It's working really, really well. We're very happy with it. And the educational process on teaching the salespeople on what's a particulate, what's a dioxin, what's toxic, how is it toxic. So we did the whole training course. It's, I think, 10 modules on it. It takes about 17 modules, excuse me. It takes about 4 hours to do the training. And that was a big push. And this is what we're going to be talking about, the SRC. I'm going to have a lot of interesting case studies coming out of California with this.
Mhm.
I spoke with Doug Quinn last night about this and how toxic it is, and how he's out in the Pacific Palisades out there, and even they have the National Guard, everybody out there patrolling and stopping. I mean, I have video of me driving, and just National Guard, it looks like a war zone, but they're all breathing it. They're not even wearing masks.
So we want to educate people like this is toxic. You have to take certain parameters to be safe, and nobody's doing that.
So going back to that preschool, hygienist goes out there, and I said, okay, so this is what I want you to do. I want you to contact everybody that goes to this church and everybody that have the kids attend the school, because I'm going to clean your structure. You know what's going to happen? They're going to go home, and that your structures aren't clean, and they're going to get dirty, and they're going to bring it right back.
Mm-hmm.
So why I signed up one little 7-figure deal, I just picked up 370 more.
Wow.
Just because of the knowledge of you understand your craft. I always say, know your craft, understand it. But it's also, we just now helped all those people. Yeah. All those people now just got helped. That's the biggest thing. This is, you build things, Eagle View, right? The whole idea was not because I didn't know how to measure a roof. The whole idea how that started was I was in Orange County, California, in Newport Beach, early in the morning. I was on a lightweight 2-story roof, right, with lightweight tile, and it has that stuff on it. It's real slick. And I was on the 2nd story, and I slid into the 1st story, cracked all the tile. And I was like, I'm going to end up dying one day or hurting myself really bad on some of these roofs. Some are too steep, and you can get your cougar paws, but when the granules are too loose, it doesn't work. Nope. Right? We know what's happening. And so that was actually to help the industry, to make a difference, to save lives, to actually do something, a big impact, right? That's what I'm doing again. It's the same concept, right? But now we're doing it with fires. And it's actually opening up a whole new industry that's never, ever, ever been catered to. And the carriers aren't seeing it right now. And they actually don't want to get into it because they don't want the liability and the exposure, if it's not clean right, to fall back on them 5, 10, 20 years from now. So, pivoting. I've been saying it for years. I've been talking about it on stage. I'm doing all sorts of stuff, not just cleaning it, not just doing the training, not just creating the maps, but also, we have retardants, right? And as you saw, I think I took a paper towel, folded it in half, put it on your hand, got a blowtorch, and I held it on there, and did it burn you?
No, not at all. It didn't even get warm. Like there wasn't the heat transfer either.
So, like I say, we're still working on that as well, because eventually we like to apply this on all the structures and prevent it from happening. So, but it did happen. We can clean what happened. But now as we build back and as we keep developing and evolving that product, eventually we'll roll that out. And that could be put in everything, clothing, paint, your vehicles, your houses, and that's what prevent a lot of these fires from ever happening again.
Wow. Amazing. Okay. So there's a lot of questions I have. Hopefully I can remember most of them.
Just put your hand up. Wait, I have a question.
No, it's okay, because honestly, like I said earlier, this is about you guys. And if I'm good at what I do, I should probably only have 3 questions, and then you guys just go from there the entire time. But okay. So I guess my first question is, why did you choose to focus exclusively on smoke claims, and what led you to this decision outside of the things you've already mentioned? Like, was there something personal or outside of like the private equity coming in and stuff like that? Like, why? Was there something that happened that triggered this for you?
So for me, we both have a personal story on this.
Okay.
I'm actually from California. I lived there until I was about 14, moved in different places. I'm in Texas for a long time. So I just say I'm from Texas because it's easier, right? I was born in Paradise, California. My dad's a home builder, and he built a lot of homes in the area, have a lot of family. And if you remember the Paradise fire, how devastating that was. My childhood home's gone. My aunts and uncles' homes are gone. Every home that my dad built up there, completely gone. So when he went up there, I was like, hey, this is my old address, drive past it. And it was it's so devastating to see that. That fire was awful. We knew people who it happened so fast that they're trying to get out. And it's kind of on a mountain, right? So there's a couple ways down, but people were actually getting out of their cars and running. It was beyond frightening and awful. So fire is just so devastating, right? If you can do anything to prevent it, that's awesome. But a lot of times you can't, right? So how can we make a change? Also, it was something that, it's like, well, I've been in construction my whole life, been doing roofing. It's something that we can add to what we were already doing. Dave has a story too, a personal story on
Yeah.
fire.
So my dad was a firefighter. He was a fire chief in Nogales, Arizona at one point. So I grew up around the fire department. My dad's a contractor and a roofer too. And so I got into it, right? I've been doing it since I was a kid. A couple years back, my kid's home caught on fire. This is when COVID was happening, right? And we had a plumber. Well, I call him a handyman. Let's just be real, right? He did know his craft. He was a handyman, and there was that little outside faucet that was leaking, and it was copper. So he took a blowtorch to it, heated it up, and guess what he did? It caught the insulation of the wall. And as the kids are on Zoom with teachers going to school, they're like, hey, we have to get out of the house because the house is on fire. They said, no, stop playing. As the fire department starts walking behind them, they're like, oh, get out, right?
Mhm.
Within 8 minutes, the whole house burnt down.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. That'll stick with you for a long time.
Yep.
Mhm.
And it was, I started really thinking about this. And one thing I saw when the house was burning, as the fire department's putting it out and realizing it's all gone, was I'm watching the ash, soot, and smoke. I'm watching my kid's face
Mhm.
just covered in soot. And I know that can't be good for them. And I know my dad, all the fire departments, they're changing how they have different gear they have to switch out of when they go home. Could you transfer this? My father ended up getting cancer, and they think that has a lot to do with it, right? And a lot of these fighters are getting sick after 9/11. A lot of people got really sick, and they were trying to figure out what it was. It's all the carcinogens that are in the smoke. So as I'm watching my kids, I'm watching the smoke, and I'm watching it go over to the neighbor's house. And I started thinking, I said, I know it's in that house and it can't be good. So that started the journey. So it started multiple journeys. Number one, how to prevent it. That's why we started working on the other product. And then the other one was, hey, how can we ensure that when it does happen, all the people around it can be taken care of. We can clean it correctly. We can do right by them. And so that was basically how it all started, right? You find a need, if something happens, you fix it. From falling off a roof to the kid's house catching on fire to April's house catching on fire. You start thinking about it, and it's like, hey, there's less than 2% of all smoke claims, not fire claims, smoke claims ever get called in the United States.
So it's literally an untapped market, and people don't know how toxic or dangerous it is. So it's been a huge education process that we've been telling people for the last few years. So we just need to be a little bit more bold about it and get it out there, because what's been happening now, it's a huge tragedy, and nobody knows how bad it really is.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little more about that. Like, what is the most common misconception property owners have about fire and smoke damage?
You can wipe it up with yourself.
Yeah, you think
You can clean it. So all the houses that we're going into now, the ones in Paradise and Chico. I mean, I've gone from New Mexico to Arizona to California to Oregon to Washington. Colorado, LA, you name it. I've been there. I've been chasing ash. Ash shouldn't smoke. She's allowed me to chase ass. All around the country.
We have another website. It's called. it's a donkey. Here, let me just show you.
Mm-hmm.
See the little donkey?
Okay.
Yeah. It's he's got fire coming out. He's got a fire hat on, and it's ashsmokes.com. So it says ass, and he's a donkey. So it's kind of words.
It's kind of funny. So I'm allowed to chase ass around the country, and ash should smoke. I have fun with it, guys.
It's the butt of all jokes, really.
Right.
It is.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Yeah, we go back and forth with this all day. And as we're going through this, the training and the technology, what was the question? Where was I going with this?
For the homeowner.
For the homeowners. As we went through this, the biggest issue is going through all these fires. Everybody thinks I can call the Molly maids, I can call whoever to come and just use soap and water and clean all this up. It doesn't work that way, right? You have to use degreasers, you have to use odor blockers, you have to use encapsulants, you have to run equipment. You're talking about the AC ducts, right? Yeah. A lot of them, especially the
insulation sucks it all in. So a lot of times we're pulling all that out. And then with the wood breathes. So, I mean, it's usually hot up there. So what you have to do is you have to encapsulate the wood and just capsulate it in there so it doesn't keep breathing out and getting back into the vents, because that keeps circulating and circulating. So after doing like the Marshall Fire and seeing all this, like they would have Serpro come in. We had our hygienist come in behind it, and they like missed so many things. Yep. So it's like it needed to be redone because it was still circulating through the house. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of crazy. Is like we don't see a lot of people who actually know how to properly clean it. And so we use science and technology. So it's just very different from hail, right? It's objective. You could say, is that a hail hit? Is it a blister? What is it? With this, we're using science and technology. So the carrier can't be like, oh, well, it's not there. Well, we have a hygienist report from a third-party lab that shows you what it is. And then you can look and see how bad is that for somebody, right? So I don't think that the insurance companies want to get into class action lawsuits, but it will go that way if they don't do what they need to do to take care of it.
And that happened a lot in Colorado. They had a lot of lawsuits of bad faith in Colorado. Chip Merlin was part of a lot of those. I talked, I've called them later today. Reality is this. This is something, if you're going to get into this business, know your craft. You better know how to clean this stuff right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Get that hygienist, that independent third party, doesn't work for us, right? Because it gives us a clearance. So our liabilities are off the hook once we have that clearance as well. All right. And plus it says we did our job correctly. Mm-hmm. But it gets in the ducts, it gets into your couches, it gets into everything. And there's some things that's porous, like certain things we just can't clean. You have to just replace. Mm-hmm. And this is understanding now the insurance side, right? You can't stay in here and live in this stuff, right? So you may have a $750,000 coverage on your claim. Okay, well, everyone's like, well, it's going to cost me $600,000 to clean it. All my stuff's ruined. And I have nowhere to stay. Well, you have different buckets. You have ALE, additional living expense, where they get you out. We actually place people. We have a company that comes and puts them somewhere else while we go through this process, right? And then you have all their contents. You have non-sal, right? What stuff we can't save, which the carrier writes them a check for.
Yeah, they keep that.
They keep that money. That's their money to replace the stuff that got ruined. Mm-hmm. And then the salvageable that we will take it out clean. The appliances, electronics, pianos, art, all that stuff has to be cleaned a certain way by a certain type of company, right? This is where I'm talking about. You just can't wipe stuff down. It's, you get into some of your air ducts, some of them, you just have to replace them. You can't clean them. You start talking about your fan motors and blowers inside your AC units and the electronics in there, right? So they want to argue with me. Well, you just wipe it down. Okay, well, how do you get inside this and clean the insulation and the foam around this motor and the blower? I got to replace the whole entire unit. Mm-hmm. Our average claim just in DFW starts
residential
starts at $250,000 and goes up.
Wow.
Right now in California, from what we're seeing, the smallest claim that I've seen so far is almost $370,000 on a residential home. That's the smallest I've ran into in California.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So our margins are better than what they are in roofing. Mm-hmm. Our average claim size is, although a large loss, they're a lot better. Mm-hmm. I literally have sales guys in California selling $1 million a day. Wow. I love to see when people go on stage and say, oh, let's talk about our $1 million producers for the year. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, well, my guys do that on a daily basis. Let's talk about the $10 million producers, the $20 million producers. How about the $50 million producers? Because that's what our guys are doing. It's insane. That's how much is out there. And everyone says, well, why even get on a podcast and talk about what you're doing in California?
Yeah.
Because I can't clean them all.
No, we need more people out there.
There's over 600,000 structures I identified that need to be done. We've got hotels. We've got hospitals. We've got schools. I mean, not including the homes. Right. I went to a Walgreens. And actually, we have this on video.
Well, you did this a couple years ago.
Just twice now. I was
in California,
Weaverville. Yeah. Weaverville, California. I went to a Walgreens. And they're all around it was burning, but the Walgreens in the town was fine. I walk in and everything's covered in I shouldn't smoke.
All the food,
everything. And they're giving prescriptions and everything else open. I went and wiped the whole entire counter and it was black.
And you shouldn't have touched it either.
But I was like, look it. So same thing. I'm down.
It's right by the food, just the food snacks that you can buy. So you don't even want to eat anything from there nor get your prescription.
So I'm in Pasadena. I stop in at a Walgreens, right? Because I'm looking for some swabs and stuff and some things I need. I go in there and it's the same thing. But yet all these restaurants are open around there. Mm-hmm. Everything's open. So not only is it in your home, this whole area, it's in your food. It's everything you do. So my question is, how come more of us aren't going out there working with Doug from the APA, working with all the attorneys like Chip Merlin, all the other ones that we have out there, all the PAs, because I attach a PA or attorney on every single claim because the carrier does not like me.
Yeah.
They want to call Molly Maids to come and wipe it down for $30,000. They do not like me when I bring an hygienist in. They don't like when I use science and technology. They fight every single one of them. So that is part of the problem. But if we educate everybody, and we as a industry come together and massively attack this like we do hurricanes and tornadoes and hailstorms, and actually make a difference. Not only are you going to make a little money, you're going to save lives.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why we come out. I'm very passionate about this.
Yeah.
So this is why we talk about it.
I can tell. I got a question about the capsulation process, but before we do that, I got another question. Like, what specific health risks do property owners face when exposed to toxic smoke or soot or ash?
Oh,
It's so much. We had to create like a FAQ type of thing, and we give it out to homeowners. It's like kind of one that I was holding up, right?
Okay.
Like restoration protocols, different stuff. I mean, the risk from soap, it shows you like right here, premature death in people with heart or lung disease. It's non-fatal heart attacks, irregular heartbeat, aggravated asthma, decreased lung function. If they're newborns or if you have any other underlying issues, it's really, really bad. You got to keep in mind the particles are so small that you don't see them and they can get into your bloodstream. So depending on how long you're exposed, the worse it can be. There's just, and the person. So, and how high the levels are, there's so many things that can happen. Why take the risk at all?
For example, I was in a hotel in Pasadena, with our training guys and our business partners out there, and they said our housekeepers came and cleaned all this already. And I said, well, it's still here. And the owner laughed at me. And I said, he goes, if you can show me it's here, I'll sign up. I said, no problem. I took my camera and I 300x'd it, right? I zoomed in and I put it on the inside of the window. And you can see these white little flakes and specks on the window. I thought you cleaned it. He goes, well, that's on the outside. I took my finger on the inside, wiped it, and then I did again. You can see right where my finger went across. I said, the problem is you can clean everything, but if you don't do it right, you're going to cross-contaminate everything. It's still in your AC ducts. It's still in everything else. So just because you visually don't see the larger, vegetation char, it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
It's tiny.
So again, this is where understanding know your craft, right? You have to know how to do it. We spent a lot of time training our guys how to do this. It's easier to rebuild a house. It's easier to rebuild it after a hurricane, after a tornado, after hail, flood, than it is fire. Because now I have to go and clean the whole entire structure, figure out how to encapsulate it, right? Like I said, we have degreaser that we have to use, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's plant-based? Because we don't want to put more toxins in there. So we use a plant-based degreaser. We use a plant-based odor blocker. Then, we encapsulate everything. Then we repaint everything. And if it's porous, like certain countertops are not all wood, you have that porous, cheap wood,
Cabinets.
we have to replace those, right? Because you can't. And the carrier hates when I say this, but I'm like, how am I supposed to do it?
Yeah, it's like sucked into the wood. It just stays there. So
Carpet pad. I mean, I can go all day. Same thing. You go outside and you have patio furniture. This is my favorite. Okay. You go outside, and anybody in California, whether it was in the area, and if you're a sales guy, this is a fun one to do. Pick it up and smell it. The pad, the little thing that's sitting outside. Wipe it off with your hand. I don't care.
Rub it back and forth to create
If you
friction,
smell it,
and it kind of
it won't smell. But if you heat it up with the friction, you smell it. It smells horrible. It's the same thing that's going to happen in your attic during summertime. When it gets warm in there, the wood's going to release it, and it's going to stink. Then your whole house is going to smell like smoke.
And you and breathing it in over and over.
Over and over and over again. So again, that's why encapsulating everything, pulling out the insulation, HEPA backing everything, running the equipment. I mean, it is a
painting it, got to seal it.
Yeah, so it is a chore.
It's a process.
But the average home takes us 2 weeks.
I bet. What do you mean by encapsulating things? Like what does that process look like?
Yeah, so we have sprayers that we use, right? And the guys put it on their back. So after we use the degreaser, after we use the smoke blocker, then we're going to encapsulate it. It's a product that you can buy. It comes different pills. It comes clear, it comes a light brown, or it comes in white. We use the white. And the reason we do is so I can see where we sprayed it. So when I can go back and check my guys, there's no questions asked. I know what the coverage is. I've done it on Facebook Live where I've actually gone up there, full PPE gear in the middle summertime in Texas in an attic.
That's fun, by the way.
Oh, it is a blast, right? I'm 6'3" and 200 pounds of greatness in full PPE gear and 190 degrees up in an attic, spraying, but that's what you do. But to be done correctly, right? So, it's a great opportunity for a lot of people to pivot or to get in a different trade, to start doing different things, but you got to do it right. Otherwise, you're going to run into problems.
Yeah.
We ran into a lot of problems.
I bet. Let's talk about the training process for your team and how it has prepared them, to handle, smoke claims in a disastered area.
So we created an online training, back in 2022, I guess, right? And so we did pretty much a full over of a home. Basically, it's by the time you walk up to the home to, it's like a full inspection, really. It's it shows them what to look for, signs from when you first pull up to the home, the perimeter of the home, how to talk with the homeowner, how to explain it, how to do a proper inspection from top to bottom. And when this is done, it is very, very detailed. But if you understand what to look for, how to explain it, and, talk with the homeowner, it makes so much more sense when you sit down and look at it. So we're just giving them education of this is what it is. This is what you look for. This is what you show your homeowner, because we can share the difference between if it's just dust, right? Or if it's soot, char. There's different things to look for. We go over that in the video. And so they're not the hygienist as a salesperson. They're pointing it out to share with and educate them on what it is and the dangers of it. After they sign up, we would bring the hygienist in and they would do their professional assessment and take the different types of samples that they send out to the third-party lab.
And then they write their protocol. So my salespeople, we train them just to go out there to educate and how to visually inspect to see if it's there and show the homeowner that they actually have it in their home. Because 95% of the people we walk to, they think that they just clean their house and they're fine.
And then we utilize the smoke map, so we know where it's at.
So I know where it's at now, right? And the first couple I did were kind of right? But over the years, I really got good at them. So now it's down to the street. Hey, I know where to stop and go. So the guys are able to go out there. They handle their stuff. We train them again on the education on the different toxins in the air, where to look for it, right? And how do they come in the house? Well, my door was closed, my AC was off. Well, I don't care. You still have soffit bits, right? You still have your all around the windows, right?
Seals get broken.
The seals get busted.
In and out, sliding glass doors, pets running in and out, feet running in and out. There's so many different ways that it gets in.
It's all over the place. But with the areas where we're going into, like we did in Colorado, in New Mexico, there was the Pandaries resort, the Pandaries fire. It wasn't hard to find after a while. After you look at it, you can actually just see it coated literally on everything. And again, everyone thinks they can just clean it and move right back in. And that is the educational process, because they think, oh, it's a scam. You're just trying to scam me. It doesn't need to be clean. You're just trying to, scam me. I'm like, well, no, I'm not going to do anything. This is a hygienist test. But once you start educating them and you show them, they're like, wow, I didn't know this was in my house. Mm-hmm. And that is why the training portion is so essential for the beginning process of what we do. Now, the guys that actually do the work, we oversee them. That's a whole nother training thing. And that's a whole nother, I don't send anybody out there after just 2 or 3 days of training. It takes months of working with a team lead, a crew guy that actually goes in there. Because remember, we send the hygienist back in when we're done. Mm-hmm. And he tests everything to give us the clearance. And if we miss one room, we're not going back and cleaning that one room. We have to re-clean everything because it cross-contaminates again. And that is the trick, right? So to do it correctly, it just takes time, effort, and knowing your craft. So it is very profitable if you learn your craft and do it right. And by the steps, and how many people in our industry like to cut steps?
Right.
Well, we work with other roofers, though. This is the thing, is that they don't necessarily know how to do it, but the roof also needs to be done at that point. So they're like, well, they want like an all-inclusive package. We can't offer that. Can you guys help? Yeah. Well, they want to secure that roof. So they get the roof. We'll take care of the insides and we'll take care of restoring it back to pre-smoke condition for them. So we've done that several times here in DFW with just the people that are, in my network as far as roofers. One was also tornado claim too. He mentioned that earlier. They didn't want to do material, but the roof needed to be done. So we're like,
smoke is very interesting. And I'm going to give just something away that we're going to get more into this at the SRC in depth. But I'm going to give one little thing to everybody, and I'm not going to say anything else to the SRC. And this is key to all the roofers out there. The ash shouldn't smoke. Gets underneath those shingles where the tar strip is. The winds get up underneath there. Those flaps will never be able to go down because now it's embedded in that tar. That shingle roof is now being replaced. If you have a tile roof, it gets up underneath the tile between the tile and the underlayment. So when I have to clean and my hygienist test for it, to do this correctly, you have to take the tile off. Now you can wipe every single one down and detach and reset, which is going to cost the carriers even more, or you're going to replace the roof. Mm-hmm. If you have a metal roof, same situation. You pull it up underneath it, it's ash and smoke. You have to clean that because when it does rain or something or the wind blows, it's going to recontaminate the house again. So we're not just talking about the inside of the house. We're talking about the outside of the house. Almost 85% of the time, I'm getting the roof paid for on every single thing we do. Mm-hmm. So if you just want to go out there and say, I want to go to Colorado, actually every state has a fire, and say, I just want the roofs, you call us, we'll educate you on what to look for and how to go about the process and do all the roofs. And we have other people that'll do everything else, or we can teach you to do the other. But yeah, I'm not going to go much further than that. A lot of people don't understand that even though we're not in the roofing business, we do the roofs 85% of the time, if not more.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What advice would you give somebody like me that would want to get involved with this facet of the restoration industry?
Hang out with us more.
Obviously, we're going to be learning a lot, in February from you guys. But like, if we wanted to, do we join your team? Do you guys come out and train our team?
Yeah, we can. So I partnered with a company. There'd be a big press release getting ready to be sent out. So I'm kind of being quiet about it. But I did partner with a 50-50 joint partnership with a company that's actually in 26 states. Or 26 locations, I don't know, something like that. States. They're from coast to coast, but they're in California, so they already had a lot of their guys over there. And so our team, basically from Dallas, has been up there just training them up, right? This is something that in Arizona, I've worked with some other folks down there, and we're trying to train them up as well. And so we're willing to do the joint partnerships, everything else. I think at some point, I've told April I want to retire here sooner than later. And I've been in this business, in this industry for a long, long time, 20 plus years. I've changed it. I've let it run me over. I ran it over. I mean, it's hitting time. I'm getting tired, of jumping on planes every time there's a natural disaster somewhere. I mean, right now we have projects coast to coast, literally coast to coast right now that we're currently working on. And so SRC, we're really going to start talking about it. And I want to start now passing the baton to everybody else. Mm-hmm. It's time. And that's how you're supposed to go out.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what we're preparing to start doing.
That's awesome. That's great. And that's why I was asking you that question, because I mean, you touched on it there briefly. Like that's going to be your legacy. Obviously you've impacted the industry. I can't even think of anybody else that may have impacted it as much as you have when it comes to Eagle View. And now with, the ash, soot, and smoke concept that you guys are baking up, no pun intended, but it blows me away. So let me ask you this: how do you see this changing our industry? I don't even know what industry. I guess the restoration industry in the next 5 years. Like, what is your vision?
Well, there's definitely a need for it, and there's not enough people to help with all these claims. So that's where we're at right now.
Like I say, less than 2% get called in, right? DFW, like I say, everyone runs to the house that catches caught on fire. I'm running to all the houses around it. So your Serpros, your Belfours, and everything else, hey, you know what? If it's a complete tear down and rebuilt, you can have it. I don't want it. I don't care if half the house burned down. I really don't care for it. I'll take it, but I really don't want them. I want the ones that are, the ones that are less obvious to people. And more.
Well, there's plenty of restoration companies that handled that already for the full fire. right? So we're specializing in the smoke claims, and there's not enough of us. So
yeah, there is, and that's the problem, right? Let's just call it what it is. We know for a fact, call it climate change. Some people say it's the lasers coming down, setting the fires, in Hawaii, and who knows what's causing it. It was arsonists, it was the power lines, the lasers. I don't know, anything and everything. The Chinese little things on bats and flying them over to catch fire. I've heard it all.
Right?
At the end of the day, I don't know what's causing it. I honestly don't care. I just know that it's happening. And I know this is one section, this is one niche, and it's a big one. It's a multi-billion, it's bigger than roofing. That is, we all know it's there. This is kind of like the ego view. I just slap myself. How come no one's been doing this? We know there's studies. The government says this. We all white papers. Everybody and their moms know it. The fire departments know it. They have to switch their clothes out. They can't, they have to rinse themselves off because they know the toxins are so bad from this stuff. But yet, how come none of us, the government, our contractors, anybody, how come we haven't gone out to the public and educated them and then started fixing the problem? Because it's money. The reinsurance companies don't want us to do it. The carriers don't want us to be in this. So this is something, this is not where, hey, okay, I think California, just the LA fires, they're saying it's like 160 billion.
Yeah.
Now you're talking going up there with the top hurricanes, even more so. And guess what? Yesterday, San Diego caught on fire. We can do this all day long, and it's not just California. I go to Florida. If you ever drive down past Alligator Alley, that's always on fire.
Yeah.
There's always something on fire, right? You had the train derailment that caught on fire. That was toxic. All that stuff is burning. The whole town's freaking nasty.
Yeah.
But yet no one talks about this stuff. But yet we just want to focus on a roof. And now we want to fight the carrier with the MRP or not. And is it this or that? Why don't you pivot and actually do better for your company and help people at the same time?
Well, then you want to look back at the history of actual insurance policies. An insurance policy, when it was first designed, is strictly for fire. It happened back in the 1700s when
for the ships
were shipping, right? And so all policies cover fire and those things that are related to fire, such as smoke. Now they've had more exclusions that have been happening over the years, but now they're trying to exclude hail, right? Now they're excluding different things. So we go back to the source of where it all started as fire. It's covered. And so let's help people, right? Let's pivot. Let's add this to what we've already been doing, right? Because we do the roof anyways most of the time.
Listen, we don't guess, we test, right? Let's use science and technology. Let's not let this become subjective like we did with the roofing business. This is real obvious. Let's not guess. Let's test. Let's do it by the book. And when we present a claim and a scope, it has everything in there. It has the science, the technology behind it. It has the lab testing, independent third party, not even coming from us. The scope's coming from independent third party. And we're putting in Xactimate numbers. But a lot of people don't even know how to write scopes correctly either. That's another thing we laugh about. So you attach all this, and then we know it's going to be an argument. We know it's going to be a fight. So guess what? I'm a restoration. I'm a contractor. I'm a technology person. I'm not a PA, and I'm not an attorney, and it's against the law for me to fight the carrier over this. So I'm not going to. I'm going to focus on what I do and stay in my lane, and I'm going to pass it to them and say, here's that claim. It's ready to go. Do your job. And we've learned that works really well. And a lot of contractors have problem with PAs and attorneys thinking, well, they're just going to charge me. It's not necessary. On average, we get 30-40% more per claim when I do that. On top of it, the referrals I get from them is insane because they're out there signing people up like we are. And a lot of times there's not a contractor attached to it. I have a job in Florida. It's a $8-9 million deal that I got through my law firm.
Wow. Because
there was nobody there, but I tossed them work. And you see, so if everybody works together, we can take this $500 billion industry that no one's touching and do something with it. And that's my legacy on my way out. I want to give you guys one more. Here you go. I'm out. I'll see you later. And this is it. This is what it is. And this is what we're going to talk about the SRC. If you guys have been to every other show and you've seen everything else, this is one thing that you've never heard about. Except I've talked about it, but I'm really going to get in depth this year. If you guys are just sick of it and you want to change, you want to pivot, you want to get into something new that you're excited about, because I'm passionate, excited about this. I'm not excited about roofing anymore. I could care less. You know, I do a lot of them, but this I'm excited about.
And we get to help people.
And we get to help people. And this is what people should be. Be excited about your craft, know your craft, and then guess what? The money's a byproduct. It will come. If you're excited and you do what you have to do and your guys are excited, when your sales guys are out there signing $100 million a day, a week, they're excited.
Mm-hmm.
It's changing lives. If people don't get greedy, stick to it, do it right. This is going to change everybody's lives for the better. And that's our legacy that we're going to leave. And that's what, that's the way it should be.
Yeah, no, I love it. I was going to ask you if there was one thing that you wanted everybody to take away, not just from this podcast, but from SRC at the end of the show. You've already answered that question. Like you are going to obviously make an impact of this new niche that has always been there, but you're putting a magnifying glass on it. Like, hey guys, look, people are getting sick, getting back to the health issues. Like I'm thinking cancer, breathing issues, like in the list, I can't even imagine, because when there are chemicals in products, but when they are caught on fire, that releases different biohazardous, like fumes and things like that. And the soot from it and the ash and everything that, because I had a fire, as one of my first apartments I ever had caught on fire the day after I moved in. I went to work and I came back. I had lost everything. And it wasn't even about the fire. It was the smoke damage that everything that I owned, if it didn't have water damage, it had smoke damage if it didn't catch on fire. Mm-hmm. And it is so devastating unless you've actually experienced something that devastating where all of your heirlooms and everything have been destroyed. Right. Like you can't even put a monetary value on that stuff. So I love how you guys are going to, host a press release, educate the public, educate us contractors, at some point in time. But most recently, us contractors will be educated more about it at SRC Summit. So before we get off here, like if I was listening to one of our guests right now that are listening right now, if we wanted to go to SRC and absorb this information and this knowledge that you guys are going to be dropping on us, what's the easiest way for us to get tickets to attend SRC Summit?
Yeah, go to www.srcsummit.com. You'll be able to see all the speakers. Scroll down, you'll see tickets. You can hit the conference part. You scroll down, you're going to hit tickets right there. There's 3 different tickets, right? There's a general admission, there's a VIP, there's a VIP Platinum, and we even have a one-day pass for the breakouts only on the 6th. The general admission is going to get you into, the vendor trade show. It's going to get you into everything. It's just you'll be in general seats, right? So it's not sitting in the front. VIP, you get to sit in the front, right? We do record the entire conference, so that's made available to VIP people who purchase that ticket. They get to rewatch it again, which I think is a huge plus because there's always something that you may not get right away, but with that, it's a huge bonus. They also get like a goodie bag, things like that. VIP Platinum is everything with VIP, but you're sitting in the front row. It also gives you an opportunity to have a username and password to my Overhead and Profit online training course, which is huge because we have a very good success rate with getting that. So those are the 3 different tickets. I know with business owners, sometimes it's hard to make everything. So I did create a one-day pass for February 6th. Now, those are going to be limited because everybody who has the main tickets gets to go to it. But we have a few spots open for a one-day only pass for February 6th. It's only $199. The knowledge that you're going to gain from SRC is amazing. If you only take back a couple things and put it in your business, I've heard over and over from attendees from SRC and also the vendors how it's a high ROI event because we bring like-minded people together. They not only learn from the speakers, but they learn from one another. So grab your tickets. It's coming up February 4th through 6th, srcsummit.com. Choose your ticket type, and I look forward to seeing everybody there. And I always encourage people, like a lot of times we talk on the phone or, an email, hey, I want to meet you. And I don't get to actually meet people face to face. So if you guys are at the show, please come up to me. I want to shake your hand. I want to meet you and, establish a good relationship moving forward so that we can help one another succeed.
Yeah, no, and I can solidify everything that you just said. We've been attending the SRC conference for at least 6, maybe even 7 years now. And every single year you have stepped up the talent of speakers, the knowledge that you're presenting, all of us contractors. I've taken away and brought something back to our company every single time, and not usually just one thing. The entire event, between the quality of vendors that you invite to this thing, the talented speakers, and then the breakouts, and then how you break everything out and lay everything out so it's not so overwhelming. I got to admit, it's top-notch stuff. And I know that you are at the helm of all of this. And I don't know how you pull everything off, because every conversation I've ever had was with you and not somebody that works for you. Right. So I know that you got to be losing your mind, but you definitely have.
It's a marathon, right? So keep on running.
Right. That's right. So I love it. I love what you guys are doing. And in any way, shape, or form that we can help out in any way, just let us know. And then before we get off here, Dave, is there anything else that you want to leave our guest with before we get off here?
Look up a dioxide. Look up something called TCDD. Tango Charlie Delta Delta. Look it up. I want everybody to look that up and see how toxic it is. I want you to see how it's worse than mercury, how it's worse than nuclear waste, and where it comes, asbestos, lead. And I want you to see where it comes from. And I want you to see that it's around everything you do and how bad it is. Then I want somebody to go find what the EPA says the allowable limits in a structure of TCDD is. And someone find that out and get back to me. I already know the answer, but it's going to blow your mind.
Wow.
That is another thing I'm going to be dropping some more knowledge. What you're going to learn is going to change how you want to do business. And if you are going to sit here, you're going to get cut with your pants down unless you join an MRP. Or you're going to want to go to retail, which fine, whatever. Right? I mean, everyone's roof's got to be put on. But if you want to continue in this type of business and the storm restoration type business, pivot, educate yourself. And I'm going to give a lot of training that I spent millions of dollars learning from, right? And now we're going to start giving it out to everybody else. So that's the only place you're going to get it, because she won't let me speak anywhere else, and I don't like speaking. So there it is, SRC.
I love it. I love it. Besides Behind the Tool Belt podcast.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love you. Right on. I love you guys. Thank you for everything you both have done for our industry. You have definitely made it a better place since I've been here because of you two. So thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you guys both in a couple of weeks. So until then, take care of each other. And thank you for everybody for tuning in for this awesome, inspiring podcast of Behind the Tool Belt. Until next week, you guys take care of each other. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Ty.
Yep. Thank you.